A letter from our Norman. Skeptics might say of this informal gathering, why the hell are you doing it again? Last year was a one-off triumph. Well, they have a point. But the reason, of course, is that I love to party. And the party we had on the beach last year was so much fun, so beautiful, and so right that it would be criminal not to try doing it again.
No, I never thought we made a mistake. But, I mean, we were a lot younger then, and inexperienced, and naive. And of course, they're like shields, really, because you don't realise how precarious the situation is. But that's quite nice, because it means you go to the edge and you go a little bit further. And usually it's at the edge where good stuff happens.
In 2001, we get a phone call from Channel 4, all about cricket. They had just bought the franchise to show Test cricket in England, and they wanted to celebrate that by playing it in parks and outdoor venues throughout the summer to get people into the idea of watching Test cricket on Channel 4. They were coming down to Brighton to show one of the Test matches, and they had a sound system for the commentary and a big screen. They just phoned me up and said, as you know, sort of Brighton's representative dance music, do you want to DJ an after party free for the people of Brighton to have a little dance on the beach? We lost the cricket on like day 2, so no one came and watched the cricket, but an awful lot of people came to the after party.
I think there were 40,000 people there. This thing happened. It was phenomenal. My first thought when we finished was, we have to do this again next year. We have to own this.
The sun was shining and it was free. And who doesn't like a party? And who doesn't like a party on a beach? And who doesn't like a party on Brighton Beach with Norman Cook DJ? I mean, I can't see it. It's a no-brainer.
It filtered in over the years, Brighton. I'd go down early on when I'd left drama school, and there's just something about it. I don't know what it is. There's some kind of calm, it's beautiful, but it's also got that city edginess. It's just a lovely vibe. I think maybe because there's loads of students, loads of artists, loads of musicians, you know, and things like that.
I came here because of music, I came here because of gigs, I came here because Brighton is beautiful. Brighton started with the whole thing of coming here for health. You came to Brighton to drink the waters, to bathe in the waters, and then, you know, Prince Regent came and gave the town a notoriety. It's cabaret, it's burlesque, occasionally, you know, it's sing-alongs, and the town's always done that. Sometimes, being a resident in Brighton, you hand over your town to visitors, and you accept that. You live here and you embrace all of the elements that the town has to offer.
We welcome those visitors. We want them to enjoy themselves, to indulge in their legitimate pleasures, however odd they may seem to us. Were there a lot of them?
Yes, all crowd. We couldn't move. It was jammed. About 200, I should think. I went to lock the door and they pushed me over.
Well, they just left you lying on the floor, didn't they?
No, one of the rockers picked me up, another rocker at another table. He was very sweet.
I've been in Brighton now 22 years. I paint things on walls for people. Yeah, this one here, the client said they wanted something Brighton. So I thought, yeah, what's more Brighton than Fatboy Slim these days?
So the connection with Fatboy Slim goes way back, and a lot of the artists we work with, as well as a lot of the local people in Brighton, have a connection with him. He's a bit of a gallery favourite. He has collaborated with a few of our artists. One such example would be this Mark Betty here, and he actually approached us and said, I love Fatboy Slim's work, I want to do a project with him, which culminated in this series. So this is actually Norman Cook's own record collection.
There's a kind of two-way love affair between me and the city of Brighton. But also there's a pride. I mean, I am very proud of this city. I think it is the best city in the world. There's something about its relaxed attitude, its tolerant attitude, and its eccentricity that I just really love. I mean, Brighton is here to be invaded for people to have fun.
Here at Brighton, a seaside town not far from London, is one of Britain's most modern universities, the University of Sussex.
I grew up in Surrey, and my sister went to university in Brighton, and I used to come down and stay with her, and I just thought, this is the place, this is where I belong. And so when it came time for me to go to college, I just wanted to go to Brighton. I didn't care what degree I did, and stayed ever since.
This year, it's very much the Housemartins that have been in the news, and we're proud as punch that they're back in the city today. I'll be chatting with them in a few moments' time.
No, can I help you?
Hello. Hello. Hello.
We're the Housemartins.
Well, come and see Steve.
Let's go.
I first got involved with Norman as I was the radio plugger for the Housemartins. Norman had a nascent alternative career as a DJ.
Obviously, I didn't intend to be a DJ. I always wanted to be in pop bands, but I was a record collector. If you're having a party and you wanted the best records there, you had to have somebody who had a really good record collection. So I used to get invited to parties by people I hardly knew just because they knew I'd bring my record collection. But teenage parties being how they were, my records started getting covered in vomit and cigarette butts. And so one time this girl invited me and said, do you want to, now, will you bring your records? And I'm like, actually, I'm not going to bring my records if that's all right. And she went, oh. But then she said, what if my dad hires these kind of double decks, you know, like a DJ console, and you're in charge of the records? Then would you bring the records? And it sounded like fun, and something very, very fundamental happened. I really, really enjoyed controlling the dance floor and the music. It triggered off a realization that my love of music is heightened by sharing it with other people. I started thinking of it more than just a hobby. And it was around that time when I was old enough to start playing in licensed venues. And mixing became a really big thing for me, to learn how to mix, to afford to buy the turntables that had vari-speed on so you could mix. And that was about the time I moved to Brighton. And when I moved to Brighton, they had bars and clubs that had Technics 1200s. And so I used to go and work in those places for free just so I could practice on their decks, and eventually bought my own.
What are you going to do? Grab that beat and go.
Hang on there. Left hand on the fader. Shake.
Picture of concentration, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, Norman.
Rubbish.
I better leave it to professionals.
When I was in the Housemartins in the late 80s, and playing white indie pop, but all the time that wasn't the kind of music that I dug. But then they invented the sampler and the drum machine. And all of a sudden, white dudes like me could make this music without having to pretend to be black. And that sort of unleashed a whole new sort of career for me. And that kind of ended my relationship with the Housemartins and that kind of music. It's like, I can't do that anymore. And so I moved back to Brighton and went back into DJing. DJ culture and club culture was just absolutely exploding. It had been in this sort of ghetto where you had to be over 18 before you ever heard these records, and you had to go to the cool clubs to hear the cool records. But then things started happening, I think, when house records started getting on top of the pops, kids started hearing them. They go, what are these records, you know, where can I hear them?
A lot of people were like, what's happening? What's going on? You know, these parties I can hear that start at 2 o'clock and finish at 8 o'clock in the morning. Where are they? Who are the DJs that are playing this music? All this wonder, which was making it really exciting.
When I was 16, we were all going to like Telepathy and Sunrise and Rain Dance. There wasn't hard house necessarily in the beginning. It was like, you know, stuff that had come over from Detroit and Chicago, and then it started to get like a London feel to it. And then the Chimes by Orbital, that's what kind of got me in the back of my mate Matthew Miller's car, driving to fucking Basildon to meet some dodgy bloke. Or like driving for 2 hours to score like an 1/8 of hash. It's like, what? Honest to God, it was just fucking terrifying and frightening, but exhilarating, you know, and exciting, and like seeing like the weirdest fucking people, you know. What the fuck is this? You know, where are we?
I think the reason it was such a big culture at the time, clubbing, you know, let's not beat around the bush about it. I think a lot of it is to do with ecstasy. I think. And so that just changed everything. I mean, it changed football violence, that stopped overnight. You know, it was the end of the 80s, and everything just changed. It was like suddenly this culture of love. It was just happy times.
It was the best years of my life. Even now, there's friends who I've met raving who are some of my best friends. Lots of the big gigs we go to, that would drive for miles. I went to a Weekender. It's called Kamikaze Do or Die. Got a few free parties, you know, you just drive along and wait to find out where you're going to be going. You meet up with a few people. There would be people that you would see at certain gigs, and you just go up and just be chatting and have a really amazing time. There was never any grief. You just go there and literally dance all night.
For 5 years straight, I was doing maybe 2 parties on a Thursday, 2 or 3 parties on a Friday, 2 or 3 parties on a Saturday, 2 parties on a Sunday, and possibly 1 party on a Monday for 5 years. And I was in my car going up and down as far as Cornwall, as far as up to Scotland, party, back to Brighton, back out again. I was like this, like a whirlwind, working my ass off the whole time.
Around that time, my main job was a band called Freak Power, like a traditional line-up band. And it just became more and more apparent to me that nobody really wanted to see bands anymore. And you know, I have, you know, 10, 12 of us on the road with Freak Power, and an X amount of people would come. And if I didn't bring the band and I just played records, 10 times more people would come. And there was only me and a tour manager I had to pay. So it became very apparent that more people wanted to see me DJ than play bass.
You know, we were having our time, I think, but the problem was the government, the government were not happy with the way how things were being run, that they wasn't able to control this society of what was happening. So they made up the criminal justice bill, and Basically, they were like saying, if you had 5 people dancing around a car with repetitive beats, you're going to jail. And the promoters was also the same. If you're putting on a party in this way, you're going to jail, unless you did the events properly. You know, licensed events, contracts for the artists and DJs. The rave scene as a whole did get quashed, but it then re-emerged into super clubs. And then we had the rise of the superstar DJs.
Norman quietly became Fatboy Slim, and then it started to become something. This might sound strange, but I really can't put a date on it. It was just sometime in the past, but it was an exciting time. To see Norman DJing was quite a thing. It was quite an unbelievable thing.
It was a very exciting time. The Tory government had gone, Blair was in, it was yeah, we can do anything. And I think the industry was very much like that, we can do anything. Records were selling, gigs were kind of selling, festivals were getting bigger. You go to work, you go to a gig, you go to the after show, you'd go to bed, you'd go back to work the next day, and it was a really exciting time.
I just remember it being a really, really kind of fertile time as well for creativity. And Spaced was our way of kind of writing what it was like to be a sort of 20-something in London at the turn of the century. And all the kind of stuff that we felt was never represented, like casual dope smoking or going clubbing or whatever, you know. I felt like I really wanted to write an episode of the show that reflected the true experience of going clubbing.
Has always been a good place to come and party. There was amazing clubs down in the Arches, and that was something that Brighton really had in such a close proximity as well.
This is Fatboy Slim. You're at the Big Beat Boutique. I'm one of the resident DJs, and apparently we are the underground club of the year.
What was going on at the boutique was something he was very much doing naturally as his own Friday night out. There was another Gareth around at that point who was running the boutique, a local promoter, and those two cooked this whole thing up. Really what he was doing was musically was mashing stuff up that nobody else was even contemplating and creating this atmosphere where people could absolutely freak out. When I went there, it was dazzling carnage.
By now, what I'm doing is just mixing the hooks from pop music, the anarchic spirit from punk, the breakbeats from hip-hop, and the acidy energy from house music. And that became this sort of what became known as Big Beat.
What he did was put UK dance music on the map in the late 90s and exported it to the world. And it was like fun, energetic, exciting, and that's what connected with me as a 14-year-old, you know, to like get into dance music.
Norman put out Better Living Through Chemistry, which kind of just had that natural, organic connectivity. It had a fan base who were turning up every Friday to dance along to it. The big challenge of any new artist is usually the second album.
But that first album was a cool record that tastemakers liked. It hadn't crossed over in the way that everything after that did. You know, everything basically changed with Rockefeller Skank.
Right about now, the Funk Soul Brother. Check it out now, the Funk Soul Brother.
The previous 2 or 3 years of the club, meeting the Chems and all my other friends who are doing similar things, it was all coming into this, I know what I'm doing here. And so the second album just kind of came out really easily. Yeah, it was just kind of bottling what we've been doing for 3 years and distilling it and then opening it with one big pot.
If you turned on Radio 1, you could hear Norman, but then if you turned on commercial radio, you could hear his songs being used for adverts as well. The publishers used to send us faxes back then, and then we slowly got onto emails, where they would ask for permission for a certain song to be used, so the artist had to kind of give permission. I remember one time one came through, and I had to phone Norman. I said, Norman, we just had a sync request through, and he said, what's it for? I said, it's for Friends. And there's a scene in Friends where Ross is having a party and you hear Rockefeller Skank.
We have got to get out of this business. We are no good at it. It does not agree with us.
There was a particular moment where we were sitting there getting daily sales figures. I remember one day by lunchtime, we'd done 35,000 albums. Most of the projects we were working on didn't do that in the whole life cycle of the album, so to do that in one morning was quite intoxicating.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fatboy Slim!
You've Come a Long Way Baby went to #1, and that led to the idea that a DJ could be more than just a DJ, and you could sell hard tickets, as we sort of now call it. So he was culturally very visible. He was dating Zoe Ball, so there was the tabloid interest. So he was basically the world's most famous and possibly ubiquitous DJ.
When a band breaks, they transition from pubs to clubs to theatres to concert halls to arenas. DJs had never done that. They'd never done that before. And the opportunity came for us to start climbing up that kind of ladder of progression.
I had a history in big shows for bands. I heard a record on the radio in Los Angeles, Rockefeller Skank, and I called a guy in London, David Levy, who's Norman's agent, unbeknownst to me, and he said, well, he's a DJ and they play in clubs. And I said, well, one day, maybe if he plays bigger than clubs, I'd really like to be involved. And it took about 6 months. The next thing you know, we're playing 2 nights at Brixton Academy with Armand and Helden, which was really the first big venue gig for a DJ in the UK.
From Brighton, England, right here, right now, Fatboy Slim!
This is where it's great working with Norman. He's always up for trying something different. We built a boxing ring that rotated, and we set it up as a boxing match. So it's Norman versus Armand van Helden. Yeah, we sold it out. It was amazing.
Norman was very conscious within the experience of a show that a lot of DJs, with all due respect, was a bit like going to see someone do the washing up. And we had to, we went for lights and sound and video screens. To fill those big spaces, you have to over-egg, the pudding. And that's how it escalated.
Red Rock seats about 8,000, 9,000, and here it's going to sell out.
It's going to be packed. I think that, this techno scene is more popular than anybody gives it credit for. I think it's going to go till the city shuts it down.
The show's got bigger and bigger, and then more production came on board. So we got a production team on board, the visuals got bigger, and we're doing shows in, so we did Europe, we did snowboarding up in a mountain show. We've done Red Rocks was like a massive show.
In the summer of 2001, we had a large number of really good events in the city.
and one of those was the Channel 4 on the beach. It was the summer tour for the cricket. So it was beautiful. It was 4 days of cricket, the Ashes, being shown on Brighton Beach, just near the West Pier.
It was very much a Brighton thing. It was very family orientated. And then there was this offer for Norman to play on the stage that was already built there, you know, and I think the numbers were like 40,000 people.
Everybody came out, kids and old people, just united around our love of Brighton and music. And it was mainly local people. The council absolutely loved it, said this is what Brighton's all about, doing things like this. The police loved it because they thought it was hilarious and everyone was really well behaved. All the sort of local traders loved it because people spent tons of money. But I do remember when I came off stage, so elated, I just hugged my manager and said, my God, it just doesn't get any better. How can we ever top this? Careful what you wish for, kids.
Eyes for the anchor that swings at our bow. B for the bowsprit through the wild seas do plough. C for the capstan we merrily around. D are the Davids we lower our boats down. Sing high, sing low, wherever you go. Give a sailor his tot and there's nothing goes wrong.
Brighton is a seaside town, had recently become a city at that time. It's a vibrant, colourful place. From a policing point of view, anything that you might expect the police to become involved with across the country would happen in Brighton and Hove. It's a good place to be involved in policing because there's a lot going on.
I think Brighton was unique at the time. Post-millennium, there was a lot of investment from the council into events. So it was a really creative city. I was the assistant events officer at Brighton Hove City Council from 2001 to 2004. We had a really vibrant art scene and culture scene, loads and loads of DJs, loads of different club nights. It wasn't a kind of a mainstream city.
We used to have very regular meetings with the council events planning team. They used to give us a list of the events that were coming up, but sometimes events would come up at short notice. And I can't remember exactly when I first heard about the event. That was possibly a couple of months beforehand.
There was whisperings that it was going to happen again, and then you heard it publicly announced. So there was a buzz, there was excitement around it, but I'm sure there was also some doubts as to whether it should be happening. And at the time, there was a Seafront Traders Association where all the shop owners and bar owners would get together maybe 2 or 3 times a year, have a discussion about what should and shouldn't happen on the seafront. And I remember some rumblings about, you know, the effects it might have on the town.
The relationship with the local council was pretty good. These people universally loved their city. They understood it represented a different ethos from perhaps other parts of the country.
It had gone so well in 2001 that everyone was behind it, the police and the council and the emergency services. It was very different in 2001, 2002 to how it is now, 20 years on. Whilst Brighton and Hove Council had a really good example of multi-agency planning, I don't think the people working on it were necessarily as experienced of major events as people necessarily are now. So not always knowing what we were looking out for. So during those planning meetings, we'd often discuss things like medical provision, security provision, making sure that we had the correct numbers in place. We were estimating 60,000 people were going to come and we were planning for 80,000.
The first multi-agency meeting for this event was it was either 30th or the 31st of May that year. So it was only a few weeks before the event. And that already started alarm bells ringing, not just with myself, but with people from health and safety in the council and various others. This was a large event. It was going to be on the beach, therefore there was work to be done and time was short.
We wanted it to be a free event because you can't expect people to pay on a beach. As E4 or Channel 4 had paid for it previously, we had no concept of what it would cost to put an event for effectively 60,000 people on a beach. It was quite a lot. So this is what it's going to be. We had to put police, we had to put security, stewards, toilets, sound arrays, crowd control, merchandise. So we all sat down, tried to work out how we were going to pay for it. Norman's quite popular in America, isn't he? So Gary spoke to his live agent and said, Norman is willing to do a gig in a corporate gig, not the sort of thing he does. What can we get for it? And he managed to get a gig, and it was approximately, I think it was like $500,000. And the money for that gig was going to pay for all the infrastructure that we needed to be able to put on a show for free in Brighton. So he flew out, did the gig. I remember the feedback at the time. I think there might have been 150 people there at this corporate gig. It was dead. I mean, it's a corporate gig, a massive DJ with people with suits.
Kick and Spin Asia, May, June 2002. This is a general synopsis of what's going on. Showdown in Seoul, England v Sweden.
Building up to that show it was just another show. It's in the cycle of gigs that we were doing, it was just another show. Before Norman did the show in Brighton, he was gallivanting around Japan as the official DJ for England World Cup. So, yeah, leading up to it was a really, really busy time.
No gig today, so we're going to have a wander around. And right now, we're off to Adidas to go and meet David Beckham's boots.
Joy!
Okay, right. If you ask anyone who was the biggest DJ or dance music producer, you would, I reckon 9 times out of 10 people would say Fatboy Slim.
Fatboy Slim. Fatboy Slim.
What Norman did, he laid the foundations for stadium dance music. You know, it was proving that a DJ could sell out a venue rather than, say, a rock act. That was an important thing. I really like this idea that you could have a job in dance music. It could be serious. You could take your career seriously, but you didn't have to take yourself too seriously. The USP was, let's be serious about our fun.
In the last multi-agency planning meeting in the run-up to the event, I realised from kind of the network that I was plugged into in terms of the kind of clubbing and dance scene in Brighton, that we were getting an awful lot of coverage. So I kind of, tentatively raised my hand and I said, look, I think that we're going to have a lot more people coming than we're planning for because it's getting a huge amount of coverage. And I just so clearly remember a senior council officer turning to me and saying, don't be silly, Becky. This isn't the Beatles, it's just a DJ.
T4 was the show that talked about the music. We were the ones that gave our opinions and that we rode that wave. Like if the NME was talking about it, we would talk about it. So Norman and that kind of music was always on our playlist. And then it was like, oh, we're going to do Big Beach Boutique. Do you fancy it? I'm like, yeah, 2-footed challenge into that, please.
We'd hired all the front suites of the brand for family, friends, DJs. We drove up on the Friday morning, proceeded to got them to park the car up, went up to see the room, had a heart attack because of course I organised the rooms and oh my God, the view.
We'd hired a room so that my parents and my son Woody, who would have been 1, had somewhere safe to watch. Yeah, I mean, this is probably just about the best view of Brighton, but one that locals seldom get to see at.
Everything was all in place. So we went out for dinner with Gary and family, as far as I remember. Then we went over to Norman's house and Zoe's in Hove. First time I'd actually properly met him. We're all in there. It got to about midnight and he said, oh, everyone, I want to play the song that I've remixed for the end song.
There's still something a lot more like the hands in the airy beautiful. I'd done a version of Pure Shores, which we got pressed up on an acetate. which had cost me like 80 quid, so I was definitely going to play that. Probably edit their version down, because it's a bit long. It's kind of, there's too many gaps in the middle. Edit it down and then just overlay that. Overlay that all over it. So it needs a bit more thump. So I've got it going now at 100 BPM. I get out the 100 BPM disc, and then we've just got a whole load of different beats. You could just end up like that. Just start with like the drum beat and just slowly bring it in. See, that's doable.
I remember going to bed on the Friday night really in a state of high anxiety, praying enough people would come. Because we'd risked a lot to set this up on the assumption it would be bigger than the previous year in 2001. And of course, the next morning was a beautiful day, but you never know it's going to work until it's happening.
Sunrise or sunset, you ask me, as you get pebble dust between your toes. I don't know. Both, I lie. I've never been an early riser. To let my body wake with the dawn would be a betrayal of the dreams that hold me down until at least 10 a.m. The sunset is deeper. The last showdown of sky. Clint Eastwood firing the last round from a revolver before the credits roll. A rap party. A swan song. Do you feel lucky?
I never forget it. I opened the window, looked outside, and I turned around to her. I said, fuck. Fuck. She said, what's wrong? I went, there's no cloud in the sky, and there's 30,000 people on the beach, and it's not 9 o'clock.
Starts here.
Come on! The weekend is landing.
It was just party time. It was just party time. Car full of people, loads of tunes, windows down, banging, weather was great, off we went.
Our friends had been to the first big beach, so I remember them turning around to us saying, oh, they're just doing another one, do you want to come along? We're like, yeah, all right, yeah, why not?
Yeah. We all see what this is about, yeah. Got nothing else
What's
to
the
do.
worst that can happen, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I ended up tagging along with them and heading over to Brighton.
Neither Nick or I had a car, so we borrowed this knackered old Ford Sierra to get down to Brighton. I don't even know if we were supposed to drive it, really. I mean, I'm pretty sure we sorted out the insurance, etc.
I got a call from my wife at about 10:30, 11 o'clock. She was driving down, and she rang to say that there must be some accident on the M23 because there was a traffic jam. So I said, look, don't worry, Jill, just go, we know the back roads, just come off and go the back roads. Anyway, I kind of got on with preparing the show, not realising that traffic jam was people coming to the show.
The closer we got, the more people we could see that were going, and we were passing people on the motorway and waving, and there was a lot of music coming out of different cars. And there was a lot of oi, oi, there was a lot of that.
All ready for our weekend. I woke up in the morning and getting all this stuff together, and for some reason I just thought, do a pregnancy test. And then the pregnancy test was positive. Phoned my mum. She's like, you're meant to be going out this weekend, you're gonna have to change your plans. And I was like, oh, yeah, shit. What? Yeah, I'm meant to be going out. So that was a massive, amazing find, because I would have been drinking alcohol. So I actually made sure I didn't do that.
I just started working at Mixmag, so this was like the first month that I was literally in the office. I'd left uni about a month before that, so I'd moved from Bournemouth up to London for my big new job, and I got sent down to Brighton to cover the beach party. I got the train down on my own from London to meet my mates in Brighton.
It was me, my boyfriend at the time, Sam, my best friend there, Louise, and maybe 3 other folks. And we're on the train, and it just felt like this giant party on the train. You felt like you were making friends immediately. Everybody's like sharing their food and their drinks and other things, and lots of music going on the train, like people are dancing on the train, just like riding high, you know, like huge expectation for the day.
It felt like Southern Railways had got every train in the UK, just pick people up wherever they were, drop them off in Brighton. And honest, I think we did a couple of links for T4 outside Brighton station, and we just couldn't move for people coming at us, not going that way towards the station, just coming off. It was insane.
We all lived a little bit outside of Brighton. So on the day of the party, we had no idea how big it was. So I drove my car with 4 of my mates. Basically, there was queues going all along the downs, and we couldn't get through. It was traffic. It was like, fuck this. We drove on the other side of the road, all the way through. It was like, fuck it, no cars coming our way. We've got to get there. We have to get there.
We got there early enough to where we could find everything we needed. Like, we actually got food. We had sunscreen, we had enough water, and we just chilled on the beach. But quickly that changed, you know, like within the course of an hour or 2 of us arriving there in the late afternoon. It's like, oh shit, I'm having trouble moving through the street, you know, like we're gonna have to hunt for a bathroom.
There was so much fucking traffic. There was nowhere to park. And then we kind of went right up toward Hove, just keeping on driving, but everywhere was just fucking cars. Like abandoned cars everywhere. People had just parked anywhere they could.
We just thought, fuck it, let's just park on it to just get a ticket. So I think we just left it. We abandoned it.
We might as well have just torched it there, although we needed it to get back. But we just sort of put it on a curb, got out of the car, and headed down to the beach.
I remember getting a call from a friend who was driving down from London saying, Becky, you need to shut the road, you need to shut Brighton, we're in a traffic jam, it's going all the way back past Gatwick and it's crazy. I was like, yeah, I'm not sure I've got that authority, but I'll pass that on.
I remember arriving into Brighton and just thinking, wow, it's like the whole city had been closed down, everybody was hiding in their houses, and it was just a huge rave. And so it was quite mind-blowing, actually. It was quite a sight to behold.
Lots of police officers in Brighton Hove, as I did, didn't live in the city at the time. We had to travel into the city. We were all told to come in at 4 o'clock for a briefing by the command team. Straight away, it was apparent, just driving into the city, that the estimates of 50,000 people were not right. This is not the day we planned for. It's gone wrong.
Right, you all happy then? Yeah, more than happy. During the day, we've done some vox pops, which is voice of the people. With vox pops, you always try and be quite cheeky or irreverent and just ask stupid questions.
Now, I've got some very tedious Fatboy Slim questions to ask you now, OK? What's Norman Cook's... Might want to do that again. What's Norman Cook's real name? Yeah.
The beachfront was packed, and everyone was up for it. Everyone just couldn't wait because they all knew the music, and there was a huge air of anticipation for him just dropping. Check it out now, the funk soul brother. Yes, I'm checking it out on the beach. It was just nuts. There was a real energy, a real momentum for people to have a good time. And, you know, I won't lie, there was a couple of points where we were recording and you get the odd idiot jump in and grab the mic and try and I'm thinking, there's a possibility this could get out of hand.
People just kept coming and coming and coming. And things started to already get quite tense and stressful down there. People couldn't get to the toilets, people couldn't move. The beach was really, really full directly in front of the stage, and it narrows slightly in places, so people were spreading to the east, but lots of people were coming from the west or still coming off the trains from London and coming straight down directly into the main footprint of the event site. We were late, as per usual. I'm always running late, and it was just mayhem. But I didn't think it in a bad way. I really liked it. I really enjoyed how it felt. I really loved that kind of like excitement. There was an edge, but it didn't feel dangerous. We got to the bottom of West Street, just by where the cinema is, and it was just rammed. It was chocker all the way down to the seafront. There was no way that we could have gotten to the beach.
It was so packed when we got down there, trying to find someone, and this is pre-smartphones, you couldn't drop a pin back then. This was literally me being on the beach, counting how many windows across on one of the hotels I was, to say, look, I'm 6 windows across on the blue building, underneath the stones. I think a lot of people were doing that around me as well, so it was quite a well-trodden path to not finding your mates.
I had friends living down here at the time, so I was looking for them, and of course, no chance of finding them. So we just found a little spot down that way, going down towards West Pier, and that was it. Got ourselves settled, a few beers, ready for the evening.
When I first arrived in this room, I was just looking out going, oh, this is brilliant, there's so many people. And then it went from it's so many people to there's so many people. And then the first, sort of every hour I'd be sort of chatting to people, and then they're like, there's so many people.
15? Right, cool.
I remember us waiting and him walking in, and he felt like he looked really agitated, which made me a little bit nervous, because I'd only been doing telly for, maybe 2 or 3 years. We both turned around at the same time, and I said something along the lines of, wow, look at this. And we're both kind of like,
We are going to dance tonight. It's Mr. Norman, Fatboy Slim, Cook.
Good evening.
How are you doing, Norman?
I'm actually quite scared.
Can I just say, look at what you've created.
I know, it's a monster that's gone out of control.
I remember absolutely shitting myself walking out of the briefing. The briefing was in a small cafe in Archers on the bottom of the seafront, and I basically had to fight my way through to get into the briefing. And on the briefing on the way out, they basically went, right, you're on this point, get to it. Pretty much having to fight my way through the crowd to get to the point, and that was 4.5 hours before the gig was even due to start. So I knew at that point it was going to be massive, and as I said, it was the first big gig I'd worked at, so for me it was a real baptism by fire.
We were probably deployed out into the city and the event area sometime around 6 p.m. Almost immediately, our team's officers were lost. You couldn't see anyone. It was difficult to get hold of people on the radio. I realised, and I spoke to my sergeants and made sure that they understood that regardless of the orders we'd been given earlier, it was now about keeping people safe and keeping ourselves safe.
They had loads of stewards positioned on the high tide line of the beach to stop people going beyond that point, because we knew that the tide was due to come in. And I understand that around up to 80 stewards resigned on the spot who were supposed to be maintaining the high tide mark. And I remember Control going, where are all the stewards? And like asking me where have the stewards gone, and I'm going, I don't know, because he was asking me to look and spot them, and I had a bird's eye view and I couldn't see a single steward on the high tide mark.
We went and stood on the groin with Kevin Claxton, who was the bronze police officer, and I remember us looking down the beach, and it was absolutely full of people. And we looked at each other, and we were like, what are we going to do?
We had a sort of emergency meeting with the chief of police, who was considering cancelling the event. Norman was very concerned about anyone being hurt or anything going wrong. He was very conscious of that. But we were also thinking, we've spent our whole lives building up to this moment. We can't not deliver.
I could see from the police's faces, they're like, we are overwhelmed here. So I was like, okay. So I've prepared myself, maybe if you're like, it's going to be snatched away. I think they took me into one of the porter cabins, and they sat me down and said, right, we're going to go ahead with it, but only, and I said, only because it's more dangerous not to do it. It's because you've got all those people there, and they've all been drinking all day, but they're happy. And if you shut the place down, they'll be unhappy and it could be ugly. And they said, yeah.
This is a public safety announcement. We're sorry to disrupt your enjoyment of the evening, but we are endangering the lives of people at the top of the groin.
I remember there were like announcements where I think it was something like, please relieve the groin, which if you don't know what a groin is, which is like a sort of thing that separates the sound of the beach, everyone's looking at each other like, what? Whose groin are we relieving again?
Of the police and the stewards and start to pull away from that groin area.
We were trying to stop people getting backstage, and so we were stood on this slippery, green, covered in seaweed groin as the tide went out. All along the beach, there were people urinating in the sea, mostly men, but not all, and then a yard in front of them, there were people swimming in the sea, and you just think, this can't be going on, it's not real, it can't be happening.
They had to get police in to stand on the groin to stop people getting to the edge and falling off. And they put on riot gear for their own safety and protection. And I was reporting through things that were going on, and then suddenly I turned around and they'd all disappeared. I remember going through to control, where have the riot police gone, what's happened? And after a bit of going on different frequencies, he came back and said, apparently they've been told to withdraw for their own safety.
I'm having one of them Ibiza moments. The sun's setting behind us. Everyone's enjoying the atmosphere, and I bumped into John Sims, star of Human Traffic. Are we having it large, John, or what?
We're having it big style, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Or what, aren't we?
Or what? What do you think of the whole event and the whole atmosphere at the moment? It's pretty mad, isn't it?
Unbelievable. I've never seen so many people in my life, folks. It's unbelievable. There's more people than pebbles.
And what's happy is that I've not seen any violence and no trouble. Everyone is up for it, and everyone's here for the music.
Yeah, well, that's how it should be, absolutely.
I had no recollection of that whatsoever.
This is a public safety announcement. The gentleman climbing lampposts must return to the ground. The show will stop until all people...
Read various riot acts about what I could or couldn't do, and if they told me to switch off the music, he said, you don't argue with us, you just switch off the music. Which is not the best frame of mind to be in.
I sat with Norman a little bit and we knew everything was ready to go. When he wanted to play, we could go over the street and play. I came to the hotel, I took Norman's record bag. Norman and the record bag stayed apart from each other absolutely the minimal amount of time. So I came to the hotel, did one trip with the records, and then came back. The walking over the street came later, because ultimately we were like, how the hell are we going to get from here to there, you know? And it was decided that the element of surprise is what would get us across the road. But as soon as we walked down the steps of the hotel, it was like, it was just mob-handed, you know. It took us 15 minutes to get to the backstage, you know, which is a 2-minute walk, you know.
Looking back, I don't remember much about the actual gig. I must have been completely on autopilot. But it wasn't the most relaxed I've been, because I was aware that we were potentially, you know, if anything went wrong, we could be in a lot of trouble safety-wise. But what I do remember is just feeding off the energy of the crowd. There's one shot where you can see I'm just looking at the stage and looking around, and you can see that, like, the muscles in my neck, in my cheek, twitching with the stress of it all. Then you suddenly see my eyes light up as I see a friendly face, this old friend of mine called Al, and I just go, give him a big kiss, and everything's all right again.
People screaming and whooping and hollering, and, you know, the odd cheeky comment, which you like, you know, I give a bit of banter, which is all good fun. And I just remember thinking, I can't wait for this to start.
Atmosphere was electric, it was buzzing. I don't think I've ever experienced something like that at all. It was just, fuck, we're going to do this. We're going to do it.
Yeah, I remember getting our spot on the beach and there being that buzz, I suppose anticipation as well, because being 19 and not really not really venturing too far out of our comfort zone as well. And really, it was probably, I think, the first sort of gig we'd really sort of gone to. And Rich had made a flag.
I'm pretty sure he unveiled it when we got down there. He said, I've just bought this, and he just unveiled this Union Jack flag with Normstock 2 written on it.
Deluxe Just Won't Do was like the song of the summer at that point, and for him to open that with that was just like, okay, he's not fucking around here. This is just good. This is just gonna be a party.
I remember just being caught up in it all a lot and trying to enjoy myself as well as trying to remember what was happening. This was a very important moment, and I had a very important job to do to try and capture it all and try and remember it all.
Toilets that we had on the King's Road, they had people in front of them. It was probably about 10, 20 deep. And I saw there was a guy dancing on top of the toilet. One of the senior council officers said, oh, you need to tell him to get down. And at that point, he just dropped into the loo. And they said to me, you need to go and get him out. I was like, that's not happening. So I don't know, I think that man must have spent the whole gig in the toilet. Because there was no way that 20 people in front were going to get out of the way.
We had a boat donated by a guy called Jack Stewart, and it was a lovely big fishing boat, and it was put out on the beach. And he rang me at about 6 or 7 o'clock saying, you've got to get down here and do something to protect this boat. I was at the far end of town. There was billions of people in the way. I couldn't possibly have got there. And I spoke to him the next day, and he said he'd spent the whole night on the boat trying to encourage people not to get on it. But of course, everyone was trying to get a view. And sadly, it did get sort of smashed to bits.
It got really stressful. There were people who had obviously consumed lots of alcohol and drugs, and they were not in a good way. It was relentless. The medics there was nothing they could do, and there were just people coming to them all the time and saying, help me, help me. And we had nowhere to put them because our medics tent had basically area had been taken over.
Felt like something really special was happening. Even my friend got punched because some guy was like, "Oh, which way are you going?" And he's like, "Calm it, mate." And then he got punched. There was like, all right.
To watch a bloke commanding like that, it was monumental. We couldn't even get. I was like 1,000 people at least back. You couldn't get anywhere near it.
At one point, we nearly lost the sound desk because just the weight of people meant that the Harris fencing broke down. And the people on the sound desk were coming up to me because there were just people dancing right next to it, going, get them away, because if the sound desk goes down, that's it, the gig's over. And I was frantically radioing through, going, I need security here, we're going to lose the sound desk. And Control going, I'm completely sympathetic to you, but we can't get them through the crowd. The crowd is just too big.
Quite a low-waist pair of like trousers on as my G-string. Popped out the back, Graham's brother Neil leant over and did a little ping. So I turned around and went, "Oi, cheeky," and that was it. We just started talking.
I'm a shy person, and Karen is very easy to talk to. And yeah, I was pretty much grabbed from the start, really. I didn't come down with any high hopes for the day, and then I found myself having this fantastic experience.
Oh, I mean, it was magical. Anyway, that's all I can say. And some of the set list he plays It Just Won't Do, he plays Chamonix 77 strings, plays Sexiest Man in Jamaica, Mint Royale, but then he plays Commisera.
The defining moment in that set for Nick and I was that he played Commisera, Let Me Show You, and that was the track we used in Spaced. We and Nick were like, oh, we love this, blah, blah, blah. And we started jumping up and down and dancing, and whoever was with us turned and said, he's playing this for you. I mean, Nick and I, we couldn't have been more wreathed in giant smiles, you know. It was kind of like, it was this perfect night. And everything was perfect, you know, the vibe and the music, and then the superstar DJ on the stage was playing a track just for me and Nick, because we were there. It just doesn't get much better than that.
Wow, it was amazing. It was amazing, you know. Just fucking thrilled, you know. It was like, and then that kicked off like just the best night, you know.
Way of conceiving how massive the crowd was at that point. Like, you know, you're just in your little space, in your little moment. Sam was over 6 feet tall, so I'm like, let me get on your shoulders, you know, like, I want to see what's going on. And getting up there, it's just like, I couldn't see the end of people. It's hard to put it into words, but it felt like you were part of this giant organism that is just beyond you, and you're just this one little part, you know? I remember feeling overwhelmed with joy and being able to share this moment with other people.
The decision was taken with the event organisers to finish the event early. I believe it finished sometime after 10 p.m.
I was very, very grateful when I heard Pure Shores coming on, and I still get goosebumps when I hear it, and I just thought, oh, thank God, it's going to be over now. Searching places to find a piece of something to call mine. A piece of something to call mine.
You know, I just thought it was just amazing. Had a good dance. I didn't dance as much as I would have liked to because there wasn't enough space, but it was just one of the best evenings.
There was a general consensus that the vibe of the gig, it was Fatboy Slim, it was more chilled out, meant that a norm developed where people were more tolerant and more accepting, and it was a kind of more convivial atmosphere. I remember talking to a senior security person afterwards, and he did say to me, if that had been an Oasis gig, we would have been fucked.
I remember it being kind of chaotic, looking out, thinking, wow, where are all these people going to go now? How are you getting home, you know? Jesus. I'm thinking, I'm so glad I don't have to try and get back to London.
I know someone in the group had a plan. We rushed through the crowd and ran to the train station. We were able to get on a train. When we were waiting for the train to take off, there were these hordes of people that just climbed on top of the train because there was no more space, and they were prying at the doors, and they were shaking the train, and it took forever for like staff to, you know, get them off of the train. It was definitely one of those scenarios where the potential for danger was very much present, but that whole day just feels like a dream to me. Like everything went so well that I was like, oh, we got on the train and we're safe and we're here, we're gonna get home. Haha, there's people on the train, and not really like being aware of like, oh shit, this is a shit show.
Ladies and gentlemen, fantastic evening. And now we want you to go home safely. Fantastic evening. Please leave Brighton safe with good memories. Please do not push. Please do not push. Listen to the police and the stewards.
By this time, we were already tired. It had been a hot, sticky, difficult evening. You know, we'd run out of drinking water a long time ago, and there's no time to refresh or whatever. We had real trouble getting people safely off the beach. I saw people slipping and falling underneath people and getting trodden on.
Start making your way home, but please don't push. Listen to the police and the stewards.
I remember having to walk through the crowd holding hands in like a chain just so we didn't lose each other, you know.
Buzzing still.
Yeah, buzzing, yeah.
Such a great day. That would, probably with a suntan as well.
Yeah.
On the beach for so long, but
some tan lines,
yeah,
just
the sea of people, wasn't it? Just sort of
trying to get home.
Please take their advice.
There were tens of thousands of people moving off the beach into the town. Lots had come by rail, and we knew that there weren't a lot of trains laid on to take people away afterwards. And very quickly, the gates to the railway station were shut by the railway company. We tried to get a few trains in, and we did get some trains in. We had buses laid on to take people, I think, at least as far as London. There was a huge operation went on to try and get people safely out of the city.
At that point, the last buses were in the garage by 12:30. That particular night, there were no night buses as such. I think we invented them that night to get them through due to the number of people that were still around. We got calls out to the drivers to say, those of you that want to do extra for us tonight, if you want to do an extra round trip, you know, you'll be paid accordingly and it'll all be moved on. From there, we had to make sure we could get as many people on as what we could and try to ensure that those more vulnerable were getting on to get home.
I was supposed to go back to London, and it was a bit like, well, I don't think I'm going to get a train at the moment. So we were just like, oh, we'll just hang out on the beach. Damien disappeared off somewhere. I hung out with Graham and Neil. We had a couple of beers on the beach, and then we sort of had a bit of a wander around.
You couldn't move, but the buzz was unreal. The amount of people that were there, the conversations taking place, the happiness and the madness of people was just absolutely mental. The last time I saw anything like that was when I went to Wembley for the Brighton Man United Cup final, and that's the only time I've seen that amount of people. Some drivers had never driven certain routes before, and because they'd have just now appeared, because we got some drivers to stay on and come and do extra services, and we almost came to a decision that if you don't know where you're going, effectively you know your end goal, get yourself there and get back as soon as you can, because I can't see the pavement yet. There's still that many people. Thankfully, it was a brilliant, peaceful party. You know, there was no aggravation, no argument, no trouble. It was great fun. It was a massive challenge, and it still ranks as one of my highest memories in my job.
What was that video camera? Let it rain. Should we go get
It was time, we were starting to get a little bit lighter. We walked back up towards the train station. Graham and Neil walked back up with me, and as I was going, Neil said, oh, can I take your number?
Well, I owe my brother a lot. More than I can say.
So I quickly scribbled it down and was kind of like, yeah, it'd be great to hear from you, looking at Graham. And that was it. I went off into the night, went off into the early morning, got back to West London, showered, straight back into central London, and did a day's work at my desk going, oh my God, what a night.
Can't believe you did that.
All of us who started that evening at sort of 4 o'clock the previous afternoon didn't generally get off until 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I decided to try and drive along the seafront, which I did with some difficulty because of the rubbish and everything. The whole beach between the piers just looked like some huge refugee camp.
There were just cars abandoned everywhere. There were just clothes. It was like there was shoes. It was just like people had just disappeared and just left everything. And there were bodies of people lying, just sleeping on the ground. I ended up not going home because I realised my housemates were having a party, and I went to my mum's instead and hid there while trying to work out what on earth. Yeah, I just felt like I'd destroyed my hometown. It felt so awful what had happened to the city, and that was so sad because it should have been such a good thing to celebrate.
I drove along there and then ended up back at home, and I remember standing there and then looking down and realising that I still had my full uniform on, I had all my kit on, kit that I should have left at the police station, and just thinking, I don't know what's gone on. I just don't know how we've got through that.
The following morning, I had all my kids with me. The tidy up was going on. We jumped on our bus and we headed down on holiday for 2 weeks. So the thing I remember most about that was getting a phone call from Zoe saying, "Why aren't you here? Why aren't you dealing with this?" That we had no crisis management strategy. So there was an aftermath.
I also had another job where I worked out of town and I had to get up early. I had a pickup truck at the time, and I remember driving through the rubbish along the seafront and the rubbish being as high as the wheels on my truck.
So I woke up the next morning, I spoke to my boss and he told me that a clean-up was starting, but he told me to stay at home. He told me that I didn't need to come down, didn't need to work on it, but I felt incredibly guilty because I felt like I had done this to my town. So I did go down later on and I went and helped pick up rubbish. Of course, what had happened was that then, you know, the sun didn't stop shining. So we could have done with some rain to wash away the lovely smell of urine that was over the whole beach. So it absolutely stunk for about 2 weeks.
I was mortified that I thought everyone in Brighton was going to love me for what we'd done. And the idea that they would all hate me, it was like, no, I can't, this is, you know, literally don't shit on your own doorstep. So, no, I've immediately said, just whatever it takes, I'll pay for the clean-up. Broken glass and piss. The two things you don't want in your life when you go to the seaside.
This was written 20 years ago, this week, I think. I know we held the magazine back because we wanted to get this in, because print magazines, the deadlines are really tight. And to get something in that's, you know, that's new is really difficult. So we held back this double-page spread to get the story in. Well, first of all, the headline, Fatboy Slim is fucking in trouble. You know, when this was happening, all the papers, the kind of buzz and the media around it was just the kind of a sort of negative reaction to what had happened in a way. People weren't necessarily celebrating what had happened positively. They were sort of talking about how Fatboy Slim has to leave the country, or they've caused such a massive mess, or, you know, people have been injured.
We got into the office on Monday, all at Fulham, had a sort of a debrief, and that's when the press had started to come out that someone had died of a heart attack. There was lots of aggro, a lot of false reporting, but we didn't feel euphoric, we felt broken.
Most people had a good time. There was a few injuries, but considering that amount of people, I mean, there's 6 arrests, which is apparently less than there normally is on a Saturday night in Brighton.
There was a lot of distress amongst the services, amongst the police and amongst the ambulance services, because they had no control over the situation. There was a lot of anxiety there, and that kind of fed into the media a bit. They were available to comment on the event. They weren't commenting upon it as a musical experience, a cultural experience. They were commenting on it as an averted disaster, like a Hillsborough that nearly happened. An Australian nurse died. She fell off the escarpment. She'd been at a party after the event and had an accident falling off the scarp.
It was a horrible thing that someone had to die that night. And the poor girl, Karen, the nurse, I managed to get in touch with her parents. And I spoke to her mum and I just said, look, I'm so sorry. And she said, don't worry. She said it was, you know, it was going to happen. She said she phoned me early that night and said, I'm having the best night of my life. And she said, thanks for making the last night of her life the best night of her life, which really kind of got me. But yeah, I still would feel, because I was the reason she was in Brighton that night, I feel somewhat responsible for her death, and that will always haunt me.
The city had to learn from the events of that evening that had things gone more wrong, it might have been that several people could have been put more in harm's way. my own organisation, the police, we had a big debriefing where events were openly discussed. There was a council inquiry which I went to and spoke at. The city as a whole collectively came to the view that an event of that size needed better planning and at that scale shouldn't be allowed to happen on the beach. What happened on that night was a brilliant event for lots of people, but it wasn't a great event for everybody. And it was a traumatic time, and I think history shouldn't lose sight of that.
This kind of thing of having a big free party used to be the norm in the UK. This was part and parcel of going out at the weekend. This was what the late 80s and early 90s was about. A lot of my generation grew up when we hadn't ever got to experience the free party scene, so we don't know what it's like to turn up to a free party and just dance. So it's kind of weird in a way that suddenly, out of nowhere, there's this massive free event that everyone can turn up to, and it's just liberating and everyone's having a great time. And then immediately the morning after, you're like, actually, we're probably never going to get to do that ever again.
The problems that there were on the day, and there were massive problems, were to do with infrastructure. Myself and other people who work in the field of crowd psychology use this as an example to show, yes, this was a near catastrophe, but the catastrophe was to do with the infrastructure collapsing. It was absolutely nothing to do with crowd behaviour, and it's a very good example, I would say, of the crowd actually preventing disaster, because there were times when we had to work with the crowd.
One of the things that came out after the Big Beach Boutique concert was that there were going to be no more free unticketed events in the UK. We were incredibly lucky that day, but it was only a short amount of time that there would have been another free ticketed event where something could have gone really wrong. So I think without Big Beach Boutique, kind of setting the line and making sure that it really helped the industry improve dramatically. And it has meant that we've gone on in the UK to have some of the best and safest events in the world.
I think one of the nice things I remember was the phone didn't stop ringing from all over the planet. We started to play beaches all around the world. So Big Beach Boutique happened in Rio. On an even bigger scale, it happened in Japan. By then it was selling tickets and it was a different kind of model. It wasn't the kind of free-spirited, spontaneous, acid house spirit. It was a bit more organised. And it just took Norman to another level internationally.
This party in Brighton was a milestone in dance music. It was a change in how people perceived DJs and what they could do. It was not just a turning point for dance music and DJs, but also for music culture in general. I think an acceptance that dance music is more than just sweaty nightclubs or underground raves. It was something for everybody.
For me, it opened more doors just in my relationship with the city. I kind of thought there might be sections of the community down here who would hate me after what we'd almost destroyed the city. But everyone seemed to love me. And from then on, everybody I meet walking down the street, the first thing they say is, when are you going to have another beach party?
Fatboy Slim! Yes,
I'm still doing this because I genuinely love it. I love hearing tunes and just instantly wanting to share them with other people. And something very, very powerful happens at raves and at parties where it becomes stronger than the music, it becomes stronger than the sum of the people who are there. Something happens where the room just becomes as one, this massive energy. And that's what gives me my energy. I kind of feed off that It's something that drives me along and something that I'm very grateful that I've been allowed to do for so long.
So I teach event safety and crowd management at universities. I often use Big Beach Boutique as an example of an event that obviously where things kind of did go wrong, but what we can learn from it, what we take away from it. Some of them have never heard of it, of Big Beach Boutique, before I tell them about it, and they are always blown away by the scale of what happened and the size of it.
When you're there in the moment, you don't always think about it. But it's only looking back on it now, you kind of think, wow, that was a huge cultural milestone in our country, in our country's history. And I was there.
That for me was the point in my life where I was like, I want to do this. I've got to get into this. It's goosebumps already. Just thinking about that day. And thinking, this is just some guy playing records. But look how
I could do that.
Yeah, I could do that. How hard can it be?
I was 30 years of age, and I'd been quite unhappy for 10 years, really, fighting, shy, lonely, and I'd had depression. This day has completely changed my life, completely turned it around from a very, very bad place.
It's hard to put into words. It's just like pure elation, It's this full spread of me on Sam's shoulders. It was like such a beautiful day, and I felt like that picture really captured my time that day and how a lot of people must have felt.
From a little thing this big, grown up to be this fantastic, amazing, kind, generous rugby player. Yeah, so he's doing really well now. So he's my little miracle.
It's apt that it took 20 years for the council to allow us back on the pebbles. The first rule was it can't be free anymore. See, I would love to do this for free. I don't do this to make money. I do this because I love this city and I get so much pride in doing it. But in order to control it, you have to fence it in and have a certain amount of people. You can't just invite the world. That was one lesson we learned.